We ended off the last episode just about to build the trading hall for this amazing village setup that I've been working on, and I already have all the buildings planned out, and honestly, I have 12 of them to build, so let's just jump straight into it. Although, if you missed the last episode, I should probably explain what's going on. Instead of making a giant villager trading hall with all of my villagers in it that would be ugly and take up a whole lot of space, I'm going to be making a different building for each different category of villager based on what enchantments they sell. The first of these is going to be the general store, which is going to be right here in the center of town. It'll sell things like mending and unbreaking that can be applied to absolutely anything, and it's going to be a pretty basic building, so let's go ahead and build it. The general store is a pretty good start to all the buildings we're going to build today, and honestly, it's probably my favorite building I've built so far. It is really unique compared to a lot of the other stuff in this village, with its giant sided A-frame roof. We also got this little popped up thing in the roof, and it even has a cute little market stall, which I think I'm going to put a market stall on all 4 of the most central buildings. So this one, the weapons one, tools, and then armor will be back over here, which is a little bit further away but still pretty close to the center of town, and it'll make for a nice little market square in the center here, which I think will be super cute. And like this one, a lot of the central ones here will kind of act as a border for this little central plaza, which should give it just a very nice, like, cute vibe. And I think that'll be great. And for the interior of this, it's nothing special. We've got a couple lecterns where the villagers are going to sit. We're going to have mending and unbreaking in here. And then if we head upstairs, we will have Curse of Vanishing here because, well, I probably won't ever need Curse of Vanishing, but I'm going to get it anyway because I can't make a clickbait YouTube title if I don't. So we're going to do that too, but, you know, it'll be kind of hidden away. And now let's move on to the next central buildings, which, like I just mentioned, are tools, weapons, and way over there is going to be armor. I think I'm going to start with both of these because they're quite small, at least compared to the weapons building, or armor building, because armor has like a billion different enchantments that can be put on like anything. You have like protection, blast protection, projectile protection, all those things. So it's going to be a kind of big building, but these two are going to be nice and small. So we're going to build them first, and it shouldn't be too hard, so let's do it. There we go, 2 new buildings. It's a little hard to see both of them at the same time because they have closed off this little central area very nicely, and we now have a cute little market. And also, if we head down here, they've kind of completed this section a little bit more too, because we used to have these paths here that just had nothing on this side, but now they actually have these buildings, and I really like how it turned out because it's not just like a building being a wall on this side of the path, it's actually a little open, so it feels like there's something there, but at the same time, it doesn't feel too cramped. And it's kind of the same thing over here with this being a little more hollow and not just a straight up building. And if we head inside, I believe this one is the weapons building. It has 1 lectern up here. This will be sharpness. And if we head down to the basement, it will have Bane of Arthropods and the other one, Smite, that's what it's called, which I never use, hence, you know, them being hidden away in the basement and just having one up here. And if we head on over into the tools shop, it is the complete opposite. This one has 3 enchantments that are probably some of the most useful in the game. That is going to be Silk Touch, Fortune, and Efficiency. These 3 I will use all of the time, so all 3 lecterns are super prominent. I also decided to put a nice little rug in here, and I think it turned out super well. It's kind of hard to decorate the insides of these places because most of the space is taken up by places for villagers, so I can't just stick like random tables and stuff in them, which is something I tend to do, although I haven't done a ton here. But like, you know, this one has some interior decoration, but, you know, over here there's nothing much going on. But aside from that, they do serve their purposes pretty well, and these 2 done, let's move on to the next one, which is going to be armor. That is going to go right where this armor sign says that is floating, because I accidentally included it in one of the schematics, so it placed a sign here, but sign is correct. There is going to be an armor building here, so let's build it. This is my favorite one so far, and probably the last one that's going to have a market stall on it, because this one is already getting a little bit far away from the village center to have that. And, you know, you're like strolling around the market. You're saying you're going to see that thing and like walk the 2 seconds that it takes to get over here? Nah, no one's that not lazy. That would be insane. But overall, this building is absolutely great, and it's gigantic. I decided to make this one absolutely huge because it is the biggest category of enchantments with a whopping 6, which is actually only 2 times the amount of enchantments that's like in this dinky little building. But, it's the biggest one, so it needs to be gigantic, right? Not really, but it does come with one amazing side effect that because it has so much space, I get to actually do interior decorations, like my first set of diamond armor that will sit forever on this armor stand and never be used. But it does look really good compared to the others, although there is still a lot of lecterns in it. We have 2 down here, and we have 4 up here for all 6 of the enchantments. These ones are going to be blast protection, projectile protection, fire protection, and normal protection, just all the protections, because they kind of fit together, so I decided to put them together. And downstairs, we will have the other 2 armor enchantments, which is Thorns and Curse of Binding, which I will never use either of them. Curse of Binding, obviously, but Thorns I actually never put on my armor because if you're like wrangling a zombie and it hits you enough times that it dies from Thorns, it is really annoying. So I won't be using it, and the only one in this building that I will actually be using is going to be protection. So most of the building is unnecessary, but it's big and it looks cool, and that's what really matters. Speaking of things that actually matter, next is these sword enchantments, which I think I actually use some of them, so more than one of the villagers in the building will be useful, and that building is going to go right here, so let's go ahead and get it built. Beautiful. I decided to style this one after a village blacksmith because, bro, they're like making swords and stuff here because it's where all the sword enchantments are sold, and I actually already made a village blacksmith, like 1 for 1. That's what this building is almost exactly, but it's far enough away that I think it's kind of fine. Although there's kind of an issue with this one. It has 4 enchantments inside it, and it's very cramped because it's a kind of big building footprint-wise, but almost like more than half of it is taken up by this just decorational area, so it's a little cramped in here with all 4 of these lecterns, but this is going to be Sweeping Edge, Fire Aspect, Knockback, and Looting, I believe, which are all things that I might actually use. Maybe not Fire Aspect, just because it makes killing zombies a little annoying, so you like hit them, they're on fire, then they hit you, then you're on fire. It's a whole thing. But the rest of them, very useful, so I haven't, hidden any of them away in a basement, and I'd say overall this building turned out really good. And we just got to keep going, so on to the next one. We've kind of filled out this more central area now with a lot of buildings, and all the rest of the buildings are primarily over here, but there's actually one that's not. There's one that's going to go right here, so I think I'm going to build that one next, just because it's a little bit of an outlier, so I want to get it out of the way so that I don't forget about it. And this is going to be all the boot enchantments, so let's go ahead and put a building here. This one's pretty boring. I'm honestly running out of things to say after building these things, but it is a pretty basic exterior, and the interior is similarly essentially featureless, but it has 3 lecterns in it for the 3 boot enchantments. That is Feather Falling, Depth Strider, and Frostwalker. I'll use some of those, so that's actually a pretty good ratio, 2 out of 3, because I'm not using Frostwalker. It just kills crops, like in this situation it would. But the other 2 quite useful, and this building's very basic, so let's just move on. And the next one is going to be bows, which is going to go right here, and it's going to be a quite small building for 4 enchantments, so I'm going to have to get a little creative with this one to actually fit all of them. Yeah, no, this is one of the most boring buildings I've built so far, and the interior is extremely basic. I didn't do anything fun with the lecterns being in here, but there are 4 of them, and that's all that really matters. This one is for the bow enchantments, I believe, so we got Power, Punch, Flame, and Infinity. A couple of those I actually used, so this is a pretty good building. Then that's about it. The building itself is, like I said, incredibly boring, but it might actually be the last of the incredibly boring buildings because we're kind of done with this central area of the village. All of the rest of them are going to go over in this area, and they actually have a little bit more theme behind them because a lot of these ones are just like, oh, it's a bow place. I don't know what to do for that, so just make a building. I mean, this one's a little special, but that's about it, whereas most of these ones actually have a little bit more theme. And before I can even get to building most of them, there's one thing I have to do, because I planned out these in the last episode, but over here there's going to be a fishing one, and for that fishing one I want to make an entire lake, which is kind of a big feature, and because it's such a big feature, a lot of the other buildings around here, not just the fishing one, are actually based around this lake as well. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and put a big old lake here. Yep, that's water. It's not the most exciting lake ever because it's pretty much just sand with some cobblestone and then seagrass spammed absolutely everywhere, but it does the job. And also it's a little bit of a weird lake just because it's very much not where a lake would reasonably come to be. You'd have a lake down lower here or like in that pit, not kind of up on this hill. But we're just going to ignore those things, and also these guys that are slowly inching towards me. But the lake turned out actually quite well, I think. It does its purpose pretty well, and there's actually a villager building down in the lake. If we head down here, we have a nice little underwater ruin with some lecterns in it. This one might be a little annoying to get the villagers to, but once we have the entire underground system, it should be fine. And this is going to be the Trident building, which I think makes sense. I styled this building after a underwater ruin where you find lots of drowns and therefore tridents. And it has 4 enchantments for the 4 Trident enchantments, which is Impaling, Riptide, Channeling, and the other one that is called Loyalty. Definitely didn't forget it, and I think it actually turned out really well. This is one of my favorite little buildings, probably just because it let me get away from the actual villager style and into a little bit of a different building thing. But we still have a lot of buildings to do around this lake, specifically one more, actually. We have to get the little fishing hut in, which is going to go off of this path and have a little dock out onto the lake, so let's go ahead and build that one. I think this is one of my favorites so far. It turned out really well, and I think that's actually mostly because of the interior, because the exterior is pretty boring. It has this like neat little shed-style roof type thing over part of it, and it has a nice little dock and stuff, but the interior is really fancy compared to the rest of the buildings. You've got the 2 lecterns for the 2 fishing rod enchantments, which is like Lure and Luck of the Sea, I think, but then the rest of it actually has some details. We've got a nice little like loft with a bed. We have these 2 little like raised platform things. I just think it turned out really well, and this really is because my planning was horrible for this building. This is the footprint I planned out for it, but it only has 2 enchantments in it, so there's more space for enchantments than I need, but I don't really mind because the interior ended up really great, and has a nice little dock. You can sit here and do some fishing. And now that we're done with that building, I actually have to backtrack a little bit because I accidentally forgot to build a building that's close to the center of town here. Because I was thinking, oh, I just have like the one that's there's one over there, and there's one like here. But there's actually one that's a little bit close to the center of town, just on this junction right here. It's going to be the helmet building, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly, but it's going to be very similar to this one, and it's going to be kind of boring, so let's just build it. Actually, I'd say it hasn't taken the #1 most boring place. I think that's still this one, but this thing has a cool little stone thing, because the original plan was supposed to be like a armor smith or something, because it's the helmet shop, and if we head inside, there's nothing resembling that in the inside, but we do have our 2 lecterns for respiration and Aqua Affinity, which I believe are both helmet enchantments. If I got that wrong, that's definitely possible. I've also realized a little flaw with this. I haven't separated these 2, so I have to put like a trapdoor or something in there, but I'll do that later. For now, or on to the next building, because this one's kind of boring. I've actually already built it. It's this kind of sneaky little tent up here, because I was trying to think of something more creative to do while I was building that one, and this is the crossbow enchantment. So I decided to make like a little tent type thing, like a little pillager outpost. I got some inspiration from the guys chasing me over there. They're like spying on the village or something, preparing for an invasion. And this is all the crossbow enchantments, because pillagers use crossbows and I don't, so it's super far away and out of the way. So we have the 3 crossbow enchantments, which are piercing, quick shot, and multi-shot, I believe, or maybe it's called quick draw, but we've got 3 little spots for them in here. This one is my favorite so far. It's just it's very weird because it's like super far away, but honestly this one's probably going in the thumbnail. I really like how it turned out and stuff, and it's not boring, so yeah, I really love this one. And we only have 1 left, I think, with this one and the helmet one done. I believe all we have left are the 2 create mod enchantments, which are the potato cannon enchantment, which I believe is called potato recovery, and also the copper back tank enchantment, which is called capacity. And since those are kind of related, being both from the create mod, they're going to go in the same building. It's going to go somewhere along here, maybe like in this corner, somewhere in this area. Haven't really planned it out too far, but I'm going to go plan it out and build it. The final building, and I think it has in fact taken the record for most boring structure. This thing is incredibly basic. It has nothing on the outside and nothing on the inside, but it does have 2 lecterns for potato recovery and capacity, so that is all that we need, and that is all 12 buildings added to the village for every single enchantment in the game. Now all I have to do is actually get the villagers there, which is going to take a while. I have to make a whole gantry system and stuff, and that is exactly why I am going to leave it for the next episode. So For now, I'm going to go ahead and end this one here, but we made great progress today. Definitely the most individual builds I've done in a single episode like ever. But the next one, we will hook up the selector that is way over here to an actual gantry system to get villagers from this building to all of these ones. It should be great, so I hope to see you there. But for now, hope you like this one, and I will see you later.